Hi there, I'm John of John's Carnivorous Plants, and this is my indoor nursery. Today, I'm going to rant on about how to grow Venus flytraps and Sarracenia indoors. And this is more of like an informal kind of rant style video. Got a few notes here so I can make sure I keep myself on track. But I just want to get this information out there from my personal experiences, as you can see here, and throughout all of my other videos on the channel. So, I have a decade of growing experience now with carnivorous plants, and pretty much from year one, I've been growing flytraps or Sarracenia indoors. This year, these guys are going to end up finally making their permanent home outside, but for other reasons, which there's a video that should be coming up pretty soon for why I don't sell or grow Venus flytraps or Sarracenia for sale. So definitely check that out. It should be in the description below. But back to how to grow Sarracenia and Venus flytraps indoors. So there's a lot of information out there that says, no, you can't do that. This prepara right here is literally an 8-year-old specimen that's been indoors the entire life. So it's very large, flowered multiple times. Literally have a Sarracenia aureophilus flower and a Sarracenia minor flower right there. And yeah, there's some challenges that you have to overcome to obviously grow them inside, which I document in another video, why you shouldn't grow Sarracenia and Venus flytraps indoors. Now, with all of that out of the way, there are some like philosophical ideologies towards keeping these kind of plants indoors. So when you think about it, there's usually a flowering and a vegetative phase for most plants. Whenever it comes to plants that are temperate and have a dormancy and are perennial, they typically have a third stage where that dormancy is a part of that life cycle only out of necessity. In the case of Sarracenia and Venus flytraps, the reason that they die back and go dormant is because all of that other soft tissue up top, except in the case of like Purpurea and a few other hybrids, they get damaged whenever that tissue gets frozen. So it's not advantageous for them to try and grow up whenever it's going to snow. So if you remove that and pull them inside, you're essentially trying to maintain the summer growth, which my guiding philosophy of growing pretty much any of the carnivorous plants is the same thing I picked up from Barry Rice a while back, which is replicate the natural environment. So if we're trying to replicate the natural environment for Sarracenia or the flytraps, which are out of frame down there, we want to simply try to keep things warm. We want to keep things kind of like it's summer, so like humid as well. And you want to feed them pretty consistently and have the right kind of lighting going on. Otherwise, you're going to run into all kinds of issues. As well as you should already understand the basics of maintaining these plants to understand what I mean by, oh, you want to keep them in vegetative growth. If you don't know what the different seasonal growth of a Venus flytrap or a Sarracenia looks like, it could lead you to incorrectly diagnosing pest issues, or you're not recognizing that a plant is unhealthy and needs more fertilizer or more root space, or you need to repot it, whatever. There's a numerous other challenges that you should acquaint yourself with first before you try to grow indoors. Now, for my rough guidelines, all of my plants are in these 3x3x3 inch pots for the indoor temperates, and they use peat perlite as the medium. It's very important. Want to keep it slightly acidic, very well draining. And then like I do with all of my plants that are tray watered, make sure that the tray's water level gets all the way down before filling it back up. That way you allow for good oxygenation of the medium and prevent an anaerobic environment from forming. So if you ever have your pots smelling like there's sulfur, like rotten egg smell coming up out of them, or like a really nasty boggy smell other than the normal earthy peat smell you get when you freshly open a bag of peat, that generally tells you have an anaerobic bacteria growing in your pot and it's because it's too wet, and it's just so constantly wet that no aerobic bacteria, which use oxygen, are down there actually processing, the soil and medium. So you want to make sure peat perlite, you let the tray come down and then fill it back up, which can get kind of problematic with Sarracenia, which you should see in my Why You Shouldn't Grow Sarracenia or Flytraps Indoors video. Moving on, 14 hours of 350 ppfd lighting to the rhizome level for Sarracenia. They also like more light up top, and as you can see with mine, they don't care to run into the light and like get squished, but it's very important to maintain the lighting at the rhizome level. Otherwise, they start throwing off weird phyllodes, and it's not a good time. It looks very similar to like mite damage, but there are no mites, and you can treat them or whatever, and they just still grow the weird phyllodes. As in cases of like flava and Oreophylla, it's the phyllodes that you'll generally see towards late season or early spring that are just like the non-formed pitchers, but you'll start seeing it on other species as well. So it's just, you got to keep the good light source onto the rhizome itself, which is kind of challenging. So you need really powerful grow lighting to adequately get the light, to these Sarracenia rhizomes. Also, as they grow taller, as you can see here with Minor, this is the big reason why I got to move mine outside. Minor has gotten to the point now where it's just consistently smashing into the lights. I'm not even getting a good display out of it anymore. And it's never going to be something I end up selling, so outdoors it goes. Other environmental factors here to keep in mind. Sarracenia can handle red blue light. Venus flytraps like blue light. Do not put them under blurples like I have here. Otherwise, the Venus flytraps are very unhappy. The flytraps are under strictly blue light down there. Temperatures constantly above 70 degrees Fahrenheit. I never have my temperature go below 68 Fahrenheit, even in the coldest days of winter. So that's very important and critical to maintaining these guys in their active growing phase. Humidity above 40% as well. Heavily feed them. Now, this is a very important one. Heavily feed your Sarracenia and Venus flytraps that you grow indoors, especially if you are entirely skipping dormancy, which we'll get to in a second. Because your plant is going to be growing for 6 more months than it normally would be, because, towards the end of its growing season in early spring, it's not receiving as much food as it would be normally. So you're basically extending that summer window out. It needs to have summer food and maintain that, because the more biomass it's putting on, like more leaves and stuff like that, that's a lot more cells that need to, eat. So it's like, imagine you're growing extra arms in a weird scenario, and you just don't get more food as you grow more arms. Eventually, you're going to start having deformed things pop off of you. That's kind of the situation that's going on with these plants. So make sure you're feeding them actively. And this is where I hypothesize most people who have kept Venus flytraps or Sarracenia indoors and have failed, they typically haven't accounted for this. So like, they'll feed them as they would if it was outdoors, and typically speaking, when they're outdoors, they're getting quite a few bugs on their own. So with that in mind, you have to supplement that very actively indoors, and I recommend weekly or bi-weekly feeding, just to really try to get that going. I use 600 ppm maxi for mine, so just to give you an idea. Now here's another little interesting bit I found. To induce flowering in flytraps and Sarracenia. Now this is a cool one. So I keep it on 14 hours and then 10 hours off. Okay. And then sometimes here in the summertime, depending on how, I'm feeling, sometimes I'll walk it up to 16. However, in wintertime, I walk it also down, because I have some species throughout here that I want to flower, and they're triggered usually by light. The temperate plants are no exception. And I don't know why this keeps refocusing all weird. Hopefully that's not pestering you guys too much. At any rate, the flowering can be induced if you walk the light cycle down 30 minutes every 2 weeks until you hit 11.5 hours. Maintain that for a week, walk the light cycle back up 30 minutes until you hit 14 hours every 2 weeks. So basically you take 2 months to walk it down, keep it there for a week, walk it back up. And that ends up replicating the environmental conditions of going from fall into spring, which, as you can see with these plants right here, if I wasn't blocking it, I'm indeed getting Sarracenia and Venus flytrap blooms indoors year after year utilizing this method. So if you had a setup that was much more adequately, adapted for Sarracenia, so much higher space than what I'm allowing these. In the case of Prepare, I could probably keep this in. I might end up keeping it in, to be honest. Who knows? Gotta check out the next tour video. But yeah, no, you can keep a Prepara inside indefinitely very easily. Oreophila is another good one. But the other taller species like Leuco and Minor and whatnot, they get so tall that it becomes unreasonable to like try to keep sundews next to them, and then also their tall selves, and keep the lighting and climate and everything, kosher for everyone involved. Because it's like right next to my Sarracenia, I'm growing Pedularia stracera, so there's only so much I can move that light up before these sundews start complaining. So because of that, I personally run into a space issue that if you have a lot more vertical space, you can definitely grow Sarracenia indoors, but you need to have very, very powerful lighting. 300 ppfd to the rhizome, otherwise you're going to have a bad time. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I got to offer on the subject. These are my guidelines as a quick recap. 3x3x3 inch pots, peat perlite is the medium, 14 hours, 350 ppfd light. You want blue light for fly traps, but Sarracenia can handle red-blue. Temperatures above 70 degrees Fahrenheit, humidity 40% or above, and then heavier than normal feeding to account for the extra growth. And then if you walk the light cycle down and then back up, you can induce flowering. And that's pretty much all I have to offer on the subject. I hope my experiences help you out. I'm going to put a link in the description below of the ICPS article from John B., who's grown fly traps way longer than I have and is one of the board members of the ICPS. And he has his own personal, steps on how he grows his well, I think he just does Venus flytraps. But it's very similar methodology on how I do my Sarracenia and flytraps. So it's worth checking out, seeing someone else's opinions and experiences doing this kind of technique as well. So I hope this encourages some more experienced growers to try. If you are a newer grower, please check out my Why You Should Not Grow Sarracenia and Venus Flytraps Indoors video to have a good understanding of all the challenges you're about to face. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you like and subscribe if you stuck through it this long. And I'll catch you on the next one. Happy growing.